Alright, there we go. My name is Niclas Huschenbeth and welcome to today's premium coaching live show here on Chess24. What is this all about? For those of you who might be here for the first time, I'm analyzing the games of premium members who have sent them in to me via the database analysis and coaching feature here on Chess24, which you can find on the top if you go to learn and then the features on the right. And I will have a look, go through those games, and hopefully give some good advice that all of those people who are also watching, whose games I'm not analyzing, also can apply in their own games. So let's get started. And I know the first player, the first person whose game I'm analyzing is already very excited. It's Blitz-Dating. And we'll get to his game. Alright, and I was already told video and sound is good, so let's get started. This is not it. Here it is. And we'll see. And he included a lot of comments, which is great, because the more comments, the more or the better targeted my advice usually is. So what is he saying? I need to translate now on the go. So I haven't played a league game since 2002. And now I returned in 2009 and I became vice champion in rapid chess in this state, which I can't really translate. This was the high point of my chess career in the season 14-15. I want to get back to chess. This game was not very great, but it's showing my current state, my current chess state. All right, let's begin. Okay, so I'm guessing you're playing with the black pieces. Can't really tell right from the start. From this comment, I'm assuming you're playing with black. All right, so d4, d5, c4, c6. Allowing the exchange Slav, c takes d5. But okay, I mean, yeah, white can do that, but there are some drawbacks for every opening, so you don't really need to worry about that much. Knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, e6, e3. Alright, you would have liked to see a Botwig variation with bishop g5. Knight bd7, bishop d3. So from the comments you're making here, is that you're really hoping for more complex, complicated positions, but you are also playing a line which, well, is rather quiet, is rather solid. So if you want sharpened positions, then you gotta steer it that way too. I mean, there are a lot of options there. There's the King's Indian, Benoni, the Banku Gambit, Leningrad Dutch, you name it, right? You have the options to have more dynamic play out of the opening. So you don't need to hope for your opponent to go for any sharp lines like you're saying here. You were hoping for queen c2, bishop d6, g4, because you can also steer the positions in that direction. If you go for this setup, which is completely fine, then you need to be fine with the fact that the opponent might play a very solid and maybe more boring game. D takes c4, the Moran variation, takes b5, dum da dum. There's a lot of theory here. a6, queen e2. You weren't familiar with this move. Okay. c5 is the standard reply. So, and let's flip the board actually. Let me do this. This is better, right? We're looking for you here from the black perspective. So let's flip it. That's more helpful. Rook d1. and you're wondering what kind of plan white is having. Well, it looks like white is just making kind of sensible moves, playing the queen to e2, playing rook d1, and you move the queen out of the d file, out of this d file where the rook is placed already, so that's fine. Yeah, I like this move certainly. b6 looks like a very sensible moment, except for what I just want to say, unless white can play this a4, a5 idea, which is very common, and it looks like he can here. Let's see how this continues, but this, to my mind, looks a little bit unpleasant. Here I thought the white position is quite suspicious. My candidate moves were b4, c4, but which one? I decided to go b4. Yeah, you gotta be careful playing c4 because you give up the fight for the center, right? So white can later just go e4 and doesn't have to worry about the d4 pawn anymore, and go e4, e5 or e4, d5, anything like that. So c4 sometimes is possible. But yeah, you're also writing here after b4, a5, queen c7, knight a4, queen takes a5. Yeah, e4 looks good, queen takes e4 is a threat. Not sure. So b4, now also a5, queen c7, and knight b1. Alright, well, if white has to play knight b1, then I'm sure this is fine to go like that. The critical move must be knight a4. But maybe you can just take the pawn on a5 after all. So, okay, you said c takes c4, e takes c4, queen takes a5. You have won a pawn. No, I mean, this is looking great. White doesn't have a discovered attack right now because the rook is unprotected. And yeah, let's say white plays a move like bishop g5. Now you could also move your queen. Yeah, queen d5 looks very sensible. Moving out of the way, and yeah, I don't think, or maybe even just queen d8. Of course, you gotta be maybe a little bit passive here, but not sure if, oh, hold on, his bishop takes f3, no, queen takes f3, never mind. But yeah, maybe you need to be a little bit passive, but I don't know. I don't think white has enough compensation for the pawn. But it is interesting. I mean, maybe he has moves like knight c5 now. Yeah, I think I like queen d5 better after all. What I didn't like here is after bishop takes f6, you have to take with the g pawn, otherwise it's knight b6. But that's not that much of an issue, really. But even here, knight c5, maybe? I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting. That's the question. If this is dangerous, this line, then I'm not sure about this move b4. But let me just see if you had any other options. Or not b4, but queen b6, because that really like starts this whole variation with a4, a5. You know, I'm wondering if you can just play a move like bishop e7. And well, what is white doing now? Of course, you might argue, okay, now it looks like I'm losing in tempo, but here even you could probably play queen c7 and pick this pawn up later. So that might be an alternative. But you played quite principled here, so let's see how this turns out. Knight b1, bishop d6. Alright, here you felt quite comfortable, and hello to Womber. Knight bd2. Castle h3, and here I had some decision problems. What to do? e5. Not the best move. but I'm better developed and have more space, so why not? Well, what other options do you have? I guess it would make sense to just bring a rook to the c file. And okay, if white plays knight c4, you can just retreat. And rook fd8, rook ac8, those would be the standard moves in this position to play. And looks very comfortable because, yeah, white has spent a couple of tempi playing knight b1 back, knight d2, and it's not fully developed yet, so that looks very comfortable for black. But e5 also very interesting. The question though is after, yeah, and this actually happens here. Now the knight goes to f3. I was expecting maybe even knight c4. And now the question is, what do you do? I mean, white has a better structure now, right? He has a very nice square on c4 for the knight. The only white problem still is that he is not developed fully. So it's the question if you can exploit that, but yeah, it's interesting. It's double-edged, it feels like. If bishop d2 here, probably queen c6 is quite possible, hitting g2, and white has to play an awkward move like f3, because queen f1 is rook takes d3. I thought at least. Well, maybe there's not. Maybe there's knight takes e5, a little counter. Yeah, but even this feels fine. Yeah, still not sure about this move e5, because yeah, this structure, even if white takes here, okay, white has to solve this problem of the bishop. And that's quite a problem, in fact. But I think just playing the natural development move like rook c8 here, rook fd8, would have been quite an easy continuation. Alright, so let's see what happened in the game. Takes, takes, takes. Knight f3. Rook fd8. Okay, so actually that's kind of what happens here. Just a different move order. Alright, takes, takes, and you thought you're better here. Yeah, it looks like black is okay at least. And f4 of course helps you very much. The question for white is how to entangle. And the stream is way too laggy. That's unfortunate. Let me see myself. Yeah. Alright, let me stop and figure out if I can find a way to solve this. So I'll be right back. Alright, and there we are again. So that was mostly my mistake because I didn't switch to the good internet connection we have here in the office. So now hopefully it should be much better and we can continue. Alright. So yeah, I do like the black position because, well, bishop d2 is not possible, queen d5 already, and what can white do? Do you have maybe some tactical options already? Some sort, I don't know, like c4. So it looks really nice. I like it. Alright, f4. Queen e6, queen c2, and a number of good moves to play here. Well, that's a luxury problem, right? If you have a variety of good moves at your disposal, and c4 looks great. Yeah, looks great. Why not? I mean, you could also play positionally, play something like bishop e4. Many options, certainly. c4 looks great. What else there? b3 you can consider, of course. When what is white going to do? Queen e2 back, but then still c4. Whoa. Where's the queen going? Queen c3? But now I have knight e4 even. Queen e1. I mean, this looks terrible, obviously. So maybe even something like this, going b3, looks great. But in fact, you can also still do this. Probably after c4, bishop e2, and now b3. Rook takes d1. I don't like that much because you give up the d file, right? You cannot. If it would be really nice if you could get the next rook to the d file immediately after queen takes d1, but you can't. So what about b3? Hold on, maybe here white can take on d8 and take on c4, possibly. Yeah, this doesn't already. I mean, well, it might be also good, but it's not that clear anymore. So I think really the critical moment, I mean, you're clearly better after c4 as well, but here, yeah, like you're saying, you have a variety of good moves available. And then, yeah, I'm not sure what happens here in the next moves, but it feels like you let it slip away a little bit. So even here, I was also thinking bishop e4 looks very attractive, right? Forcing queen a4. And the question is if there's any follow-up here. Any follow-up? I mean, even if you play rook takes d1 now, it still feels better because you have already put your bishop on e4 and you can immediately go c3, for example, put the pawn all the way to c2. And if white takes with the bishop, well, you can play a move like queen d5, hitting g2. This looks absolutely terrible for white. Yeah, I like bishop e4 very much. After queen takes d1, c3, or maybe queen c6, hitting g2, bishop f3, And now c3, this looks just crushing, let's be honest. I mean, pass pawn, if white takes on e4, then it's game over. You're saying that instead of, here again rook takes d8, now white can take on c4. That's true. And yeah, those positions are unfortunately not that clear anymore. That's true. Yeah, rook d1, just king goes somewhere. And no follow-up. Alright, okay, so maybe not bishop e4. But yeah, b3 earlier here I liked a lot. Or also bishop e4 looks very nice. Because what is white going to do? I mean, he probably has to take, or what is he doing here? Bishop e4 just playing positionally. Maybe b3? No, but this is already losing material. This is already game over. And what else? Queen e2. But okay, just take, play c4, put a knight on e4. Or maybe even here. I mean, obviously this all looks great. It's just about how can we finish off the opponent as soon as possible. And not really let him out, not let him finish his development. So c4 takes, bishop d2. Yeah, this is still a little bit tricky. Unless you have c3 here. Takes a knight e4, which might as well just win. If I can make some moves. Knight e4, and then take back on c3. Looks nice. Looks really nice. But there might be some tactics involved. But even if you go something like b3 here, it looks really, really nice. Okay, we're too deep in here, but feels like this phase somewhere here, you maybe could have spent a little bit more time. And here this rook takes d1 move I really didn't like. Doesn't change the fact though that you're still much better. Rook c8, bishop f3. Yeah, I mean this is still really good. And once again you're asking yourself what to play. Well, this is a fantastic position. I mean, just think about what your opponent wants to play next. I don't even know, bishop d2. So you could just play knight e4. Knight e4, prevent bishop d2. And now what is white going to do? You can secure this knight on e4 playing f5. You have all the time in the world now. What is white doing? Is he going rook a4? That probably can't be it, right? I mean, in the very worst case, let's just say in the very worst case, you just go queen e7 and protect the pawn. And white is pretty much playing with a piece down. So in general, if you don't know what to play, there are a couple of methods you can use. For one, what we just looked at, prophylaxis. Just think about what your opponent wants to do and then how can I prevent or how can I make it more difficult for my opponent. Then another one is see which piece is maybe not active, which is not participating in your game. And also here the knight is much better placed on e4 than it is on f6. So this could be another factor. Yeah. And then of course there are other general rules to consider. Maybe you want to do something for your king safety, you can think about a move like h6, but not here, not necessarily. And Then there are moves like, yeah, do I want to occupy an open file? Rook d8, also quite possible move against stopping bishop d2. And also then there's like pushing a passed pawn. c3 looks also very nice against stopping bishop d2, but allowing white to put the bishop in a3. But nevertheless, you have a protected pawn here by knight on e4, which is also untouchable more or less. Yeah, this also looks great, but maybe makes it a little bit easier. I like to keep my opponent like struggling to find a way back into the game. All right, so what is you're saying? Yeah, knight e4. Yeah, now I'm reading this. Black is winning. Well, it's not like you missed anything obvious in the position. It's just the black advantage is so overwhelming because all your pieces are in the game. You have a pawn which is about to be a passed pawn, and white is not active in any way. The bishop and the rook cannot come into play. It's just game over positionally. Not material-wise, obviously you're not up any material, but positionally this is a complete ruin here for white. So queen e4. Yeah. I'm not sure why your opponent played this. He should have played bishop d2, obviously, to develop the bishop, right? That's the most important. Here you're saying, crazy, I'm up. It's -2 for black, so 2 pawn units. And I'm not even a pawn up. Yeah, because once again, you have this positional grip. And how is white even going to become active, right? The bishop can enter the game. All right, king f1. Rook d8. Okay. King e2. And now rook d3. Yeah, maybe you can just play f5 here. Why not? But maybe rook a4 is a little bit annoying. Yeah, maybe it is a little bit annoying, so... Okay, I like rook d3 because now after rook a4 you can go rook b3, for example. G4 and now f5. And you want to bring the king closer. That's fine, definitely. F5. Well, could be nice if it works, but maybe you can just play slowly again. I mean, you have the time here. You can play g6, preparing f5, and if white plays f5 himself, now you can play king g7, king f6, and if white plays g5, you can go f5 nonetheless. G takes f6 and now bring the king into the game. Let's say king f3. Okay, king f3. Just knight takes f6. And still white cannot bring out his pieces. I mean, that's just devastating. But white is still fighting. I mean, for example, let's say rook a4. Rook a4 runs into rook d1. Now, this is a tough position. Tough position for white. Alright, but f5 shouldn't be a big mistake either. So let's see, king f7, king f3, knight c5. Yeah, I mean, knight c5 actually completely missed this idea to bring the knight to b3. So, hold on. Could you have done this earlier, actually? The only problem is maybe that white can, I don't know, let's say play rook b1. Now if rook b1, then I play f5. Okay, let's say rook b1, threatening bishop d2. If here bishop d2, you can just take. And knight b3. So rook b1, knight b3, and now e4 might be possible. And white can bring the bishop to e3. But knight c5, knight b3 is certainly a good idea. And yeah, here knight b3 is the threat. King g4, unbelievable. I'm up minus 6.85 and your pawn down. So you played knight b3 here right away. And you just saw that you're winning the bishop on c1. And you were like, okay, let's go for it, right? And that's what we often do. When we see something like this, we're like, okay, I'm winning here, and that's great. But look at this position. You have complete control, right? The knight is covering e4, the knight is covering a4, the bishop can't move. And yeah, knight b3 is winning a piece, but it's allowing counterplay. And goes back to, I feel like I'm quoting this every show, but Emanuel Lasker, he said, if you see a good variation, if you see a good move, look for a better one. And knight b3, you're saying to yourself, you played very quickly, because you were like, yeah, I'm winning a piece, that's awesome. But like you're saying, pointing out here, just king f6. What is white going to do? Or just play rook d1 first. What is white going to do? Nothing. Just resign. Knight d3, even to protect, to keep the pawn on b4 protected. It's so easy, right? So knight b3, but now rook a4, and you suddenly lose the pawns on b4 and c4, which makes your task harder, right? Knight d3. Yeah, looks great. I mean, you're threatening knight f2 ideas as well. Rook c7, rook e7, okay. Rook c3. Okay, knight takes b2, rook c6. Yeah, the problem is the knight is a little bit out of play now. Okay, let's just see what happened here. Okay, 7, king f3. So if you go knight d3 here, what is white going to do? If king e4, you can just go rook d7 because white cannot take on a6. But of course, certainly your task has become much harder again, right? It was an easy win earlier, but now it's not that easy anymore. But what can white do here actually? King e3, there's just knight b4. And we also have improved the position of the knight. So knight d3 looks normal, just bring the knight back. You're playing king e7, king e4, king d7, king d5, knight d3, check, 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 check. Alright, so I was very disappointed. So this was a league game, and the team was half a point behind, and he had to win. So his opponent offered a draw. Okay, and spent 25 minutes here to find a win, but kept playing. Well, that's good. I applaud you for, yeah, just keep trying. So king e4. Yeah, the other variation you're mentioning here was king d7, check, king e7, check, king f7. That's what I was thinking as well. Okay, king c6. And now rook e7, rook d6, check, king b6, and rook e4. Yeah, and the knight is protected. The knight protects the pawn. That looks great for black. And it looks also like the most normal continuation here. Alright. So, king d8, king e4. King d7, rook c4. Check, takes, king g2. And you're giving back the knight for this rook endgame. Yeah, but we all know rook endgames, right? They have great drawing odds. Okay, king d6, f6. What about king e7 here? Just stopping f6. I mean, that looks like a good try. Bring the king to f6. That looks like a great try, honestly. Let's say rook c4. Just king f6. I don't know, maybe not king f6 here because rook c5, and now I can't activate my rook because of rook c6. But here, rook d7 and rook d5 is the threat, and if rook c6, just rook d6. Check. Yeah, it's never easy. Those rook endgames, they're tricky. Very tricky. But okay, let's say you play this position, I think. Yeah, actually I'm not sure what your chances are here. Well, probably you can do it smarter, like first start with h5. And now play rook d5. Takes, king takes f5. But here also one needs to consider king h4. But actually that's probably not an issue. Rook d1 followed by g5. Or actually even stronger, rook d3 followed by g5. And black's just winning. Okay. And then you can try g5 and so on. Put the rook behind the a pawn. You might win, I'm not completely sure. But king e7 looks like a good try to not allow white to play f6. Rook c4, this all seems like only moves. Yeah, something along these lines. I'm wondering if there's anything clearer here. But I can't really spot it. King g5, king f3, or let's say king g3. And now rook f7, there's unfortunately f6 check, king takes, and then rook c6. But even something like this here, rook d7, let's just say, and white goes for this line, rook c6, you give a check, and take on f5. It all needs to be calculated very carefully, that's for sure. But seems like great winning chances. Junior Chess Team is asking, did you get my game I sent you last week? Well, Junior Chess Team, check your inbox, because I could not see your game, so you have to send me that again. King d6, f6. So now my nerves left me. I thought I could play rook f7 and then takes, rook takes check and, oh, okay. And you play g5. Oh man, I've been there. We all have been there. It sucks. Chess is a cruel game. And after g5, f7, you probably had to resign. Yeah, it happens. Don't take it too serious. So, and yeah, nice comments here. I really appreciate it. Yeah. But one has to say, honestly, after rook f7 takes, I don't think you're going to win this. And this, yeah, I don't think this is going. I mean, I'm pretty sure objectively this is a draw. You can try, but it will be tough. You can definitely, I mean, you can try. Rook in games, they're really tricky, so you can always try. But yeah, great game to send, really, and we've spent a lot of time on it, obviously. I feel like there's so much in here. So let's get to some points at least. Well, psychology, you also mentioned you want me to get to that in a way. And yeah, psychology is huge. You said yourself that after kind of missing the easy win earlier, that bothered you, and you're maybe losing confidence. Just remember that no matter what you did earlier, what matters the most is what happens afterwards, right? Here, playing knight b3, you miss and yeah, you gave up your dominating position, won a piece, that made your life much more difficult. But still, in this position, you can try your best, really have this mindset, I guess. Okay, I maybe messed up a little bit, but I'm gonna get it back. I'm gonna give my all to get it back, and don't lose your confidence. Everybody makes mistakes. So just get back there, work hard, concentrate, and don't care that much about what happened earlier. Of course, it's easier said than done, but that's just what you need to do. And I also know from myself, we sometimes then think back to early in the game, what could we have done better, where was our mistake? You can do it afterwards. It's just a waste of energy. If you're still playing, you gotta focus on the present position. It's huge. It's huge. And also what I was wondering here, if there was somehow a way to stay more active. To stay better in control. Yeah, and maybe I would like this move knight b3. Just getting this a pawn. Let's say rook c7. No, rook c7 doesn't even work. Let's say rook c6, because rook c7, rook e7, rook c6, rook a7, and you just take on a5 the next move. Unless rook c3, then you shouldn't take, because here's b4, which is quite comical. And knight b7, rook c7 would be quite an unpleasant pin. But rook b7, okay. And even if we look at this position, okay, you play knight c4, pick up the pawn, and you will still take some time, but you will win. So probably white should try rook c6 right away. But now, yeah, just take... I don't know why this is so buggy today. It's kind of annoying. Play knight c4. And it will still take time, obviously, to win this. But this seems like an easier option, maybe. Because going passive is never really what I personally like to do. You want to stay active. You want to stay active. And also here... maybe not taking the pawn, maybe playing rook d7. And sometimes the pawns are not that important, it's more important that you have your piece coordination, right? And with knight takes b2, it feels like you lose it. You put your rook on a7 and it becomes more difficult. Here you could follow up next with knight b4, have everything under control, and then put your king on f6, something along these lines. Obviously there are many points here to discuss, and I cannot cover them all, but really what the takeaway is, stay concentrated even if you're winning, because the job, you gotta finish the job. You gotta seal the deal, no matter what the position. Don't lean back too early, and maybe that's what happened here. You saw you're going to win the piece and you thought your opponent's going to resign. Now always try to look for counterplay for your opponent and try to make it as easy as possible. If you had spent some more time before playing knight b3 and evaluating this position after rook a4, rook takes b4, rook takes c4, you would have said, well, what are my other options? And then you realize white can't even move and you just play something else, improve your position slowly and then win. By I'm not sure which line you mean, but maybe it is a draw what you mean. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's a huge takeaway. Always look at your options. Don't move too quickly. If you have time, use your time. No matter what the situation. Even if you're winning a piece, a rook, whatever, just make sure there are no tricks and you're not making it harder for yourself. Alright, so that was a long analysis. So let's get to the next game. By Heike, and Heike is saying, I would be very happy about an analysis of my game. I'm a loyal spectator of your show, and I was waiting for next tournament to present one of my games to you here. That's awesome. Alright, so let's see. e4, g6. Which color are you? Against this opening... Okay, I'm guessing you're playing with the white piece here. Oh yeah, Heike is playing with the white pieces in a Cologne chess days. This opening I'm struggling against. Okay, let's see what happens. This is the perk. Bishop e3, c6, queen d2, b5. Yeah, usually if white chooses the setup with queen d2, bishop e3, then you go f3, and then g4, h4, h5, and so on. You don't combine it with playing f4. That usually doesn't fit that much together. If you want to go for this three-pawn attack, you rather play with f4 right away here, which I also recommended in my video series here on Chess24. If you want to check it out, Heike, it's right there, repertoire against perk, and then maybe you won't be uncomfortable against this variation anymore. Since you know how to set up your pieces. That's just one way to play. It's a little bit more ambitious, more aggressive, but well, that's my playing style. I don't know if it suits you. Alright, here I stopped my plan to attack on the king side because I was worried about the queen side attack. So I want to castle short and have a strong center. All right, knight f6, h3, queen a5, bishop d3. Well, you're saying to keep the pawn protected on e4 in case of b4, But what happens here after b4? That seems like an issue, right? You just lose the pawn on e4, it seems. So this is also a drawback, I guess, of f4, that your center is a little bit weaker. You grab more space, but your center is weaker. So here, really, it seems like f3 would have been a better choice. And yeah, it maybe looks a little bit worrisome that black is pushing the pawns forward here on the queen side, but doesn't really matter much. And you can also wait with the long castle. You first can play h4, and sometimes the king can even stay in the center. But you just need to spend some time looking at those lines if you want to play them in the future. Because here, yeah, knight g4 is a threat, and b4, so there's already 2 moves you have to deal with, and that's an issue. So probably here, instead of playing h3, which just loses the center pawn, you should probably, well, play a move like bishop d3 here, I guess, and part with this bishop on e3 instead. Alright, bishop d3, so your opponent missed it. Knight bd7, knight f3, a6 castle, b4. And now I try to develop as best as possible and secure my center. But still I had the feeling that black wasn't worse in this situation. What could I have done better up until this point? Well, we already talked about it. You need to be clear in your plan in the opening. For example, this move queen d2, it only makes sense if you follow with a long castle later, really. Because otherwise you could play more important moves first. And in general, in the opening, you wanna have kind of a priority list, right? And the list goes like this: develop the minor pieces, occupy the center, obviously, that comes even beforehand, and castle. And then you can think about moving your queen or making pawn moves. So you spend some moves here like queen d2, f4, h3, and they delayed your development, and also you gave black this chance to go b4 early and just grab your pawn on e4. So that's what you want to follow, but this position looks completely fine for you now. You have secured the center and you're just better. So it's all good. c5, a3. I like this move a3, making use of this pin. Usually another move, I guess, could be to go c3, but a3 I quite like because this pin is annoying for black. But you don't like the idea much. Well, I like it. But here you don't need to take on b4. Of course you can. But you don't need to. This is a pin, so black can move the pawn right now anyway. So what else could you do? Well, e5 is a standard way to proceed usually here. So that's certainly a move I would consider. Especially since black cannot take here, because in the end the rook is hanging on g7 and you're winning. But knight d5 would be the move to check, obviously. Yeah, and I'm not sure how much I like it, but maybe just bishop f2 back. Looks fine, right? Bishop e4 could be an idea. e6 is an idea, f5 is an idea. This looks great. Takes on d4 maybe. But now just take on d6. Yeah. Take on d4 next. I mean, this would be horrible for black. Bad structure. And if e6, then probably also bishop takes d4. Just get rid of this strong bishop on g7 and looks great. So yeah, you didn't have to take on b4 quite yet. Queen takes b4, and now you're asking, could I have avoided the queen trade somehow? Probably. Knight c3 would be one way, since queen takes b2 would drop the queen. So knight c3 was possible, but maybe also c3. Queen takes b2, and now just bishop c2. But here, of course, you're sacrificing a pawn, and it's a question if you feel like doing this, right? I mean, I think you have good compensation, especially since you're ready to go e5 and still there's rook fb1 in the air. But yeah, maybe you don't need to do this. So if you want to keep queens on the board, then probably knight c3 would be the simplest. But then also you should think about this before you play a takes b4, because there was no need to do this. So if you didn't want to trade queens, then you could have just not taken on b4 anyway. Here rook fb1 I'm not happy with. This looks too passive to me. Also your bishop is worse placed on d2 than e3, I would say. So if you want to trade queens, you could just take here. Rook takes. And also we need to consider this move, right? I mean, looking at moves like that, we always need to do it, but here probably just knight takes e4 or rook takes b2. Both are fine for black. So what could you do here? Maybe just b3. And yeah, the queen trade has helped black, I would say, but still feels more comfortable for white. Feels more comfortable. Also, you have this position idea to go d5. Let's say bishop b7, you just go d5 and you... Oh no, d5 doesn't work. Never mind. Probably need to go e5 here. This will be very concrete if it works for white or not, if you can keep all your pawns in the center. But rook fb1 just instinctively doesn't feel right, because the rook is just passive there, defending upon b2. Takes, rook a8, and now d5. And you missed c4. Okay. So which plan to use here in this position? Well, d5 wouldn't be a bad plan, but c4 is kind of a problem, right? So what you could do, play a move like c3, preparing d5. Right? If black now plays bishop b7, then I'm sure d5 would be a good reply. And if black takes, well, then you get the square on c3 for your knight. In terms of plan, well, you want to just improve your position, right? You want to stabilize your center, keep your space advantage, and then you could think about targeting this pawn at some point. The weakness you have, though, is the pawn on e4, so you could also think about pushing it to e5. Let's say play c3, black castles. Or actually, no, now you could probably go d5 again. Let's say black takes, and now castles. And yeah, knight c3. It's just concrete play here, and just feels very comfortable. Now you double on the a file, put pressure on this pawn a6. Seems very nice. And if black plays bishop b7, now you could think about e5, but I quite like d5. And then once again, double on the a file, put pressure on this pawn, improve your pieces, maybe bring a knight to c4, something along these lines. Of course, it also hugely depends on what your opponent does, so it's not always, those plans are not always clear cut. c4 takes, knight takes e4, bishop e3, castle. c6 is a nice square for a knight, so my idea was to bring a knight to c6. So knight ed4, yeah, looks perfectly fine. Actually, I think your position is still better here. Bishop b7, knight c6, yeah, looks great. Rook fe8, okay. Knight fd4, looks fine. Knight df6. Rook a5. The idea is to double rooks on the a file and prevent the a pawn from advancing, but seems like I wasted a tempo here. No, rook a5 looks good to my mind. Looks good. I don't know if you need to play c3 yet. If you don't need it, then you don't need to. Takes. He took with the knight. I would definitely also consider taking with the pawn, because you get a passed pawn on c6, right? So that's interesting. And you threaten to take on a6. Okay, probably, no, rook c8 doesn't work, never mind, the pawn is protected. So what does black do? Go e5? But this looks very dodgy. Now the 3 hitting e5, and now you see the benefits of having a rook on a5. What is black doing here? This pawn is hanging knight c5, there's b4. D takes c6 looks like a good option. Do you guys see anything in the chat? I don't really. This pawn is hanging. Pawn on c6 secured. No, d takes c6. Why not? Knight takes c6. e6. Takes. c3. And you're saying, I was quite satisfied and now I want to aim at the pawn on a6, but why not just take it? Just grab it. I mean, of course, it's not as nice now without a pawn on c6, but this is still a pawn after all. I don't know, I mean, bishop b7 maybe simply. Rook a2 I wouldn't be too concerned about. I mean, sometimes you can just push the b pawn, or if you want to play more safe, you can go knight b4, knight d3. It's just a pawn, it seems. Yeah, take it. I mean, you don't need to prepare anything here with c3. Not sure why you played this move, why it seemed necessary to you. Just take the pawn on a6. King h8. Okay, still, you can just take the pawn on a6, I think. You can also take with the bishop. That's up to you. That's fine too. Take with the rook, take with the bishop. Okay. The knight is well placed on c6, so I wouldn't necessarily move it. You could also go rook a1. Prepare to take back with the rook on a6. Alright, so knight b4, knight d5. Takes. Rook a b8. Now I want to exchange the light squared bishop. To avoid an endgame of opposite colored bishops at all costs. Okay. Yeah, black has some threats here, right? Knight takes c3. Bishop c1, there's still knight takes c3. And bishop d4 you didn't like, which, yeah, I understand. Actually, let's go back a couple of moves, because I don't like this development. I don't like how this turned out now after rook a8, so I think here, it's a fly. Here I think you should just take with the bishop, take with the knight, and look at this beast on d5. Protecting e3, protecting c3, protecting f4, protected by the rook, right? Okay, black can still play rook b8 though. And still threaten knight takes c3. Which is annoying, to be honest. It is annoying, but maybe bishop b6 is saving the day. Stopping knight takes c3, and now you threaten to take on a6, and I think you're just winning here. Unless knight d2, knight c4, but maybe that's not too much of an issue. But still already feels annoying again here. Not that easy to convert. But yeah, something went wrong here. This I was first surprised to see knight d5, but very interesting idea to open up the e-file and get some counterplay. Very interesting indeed. Yeah, I don't really see a clear way to play. So let's see what you did. Takes, takes on e4, rook takes e4. Yeah, but now I'm not happy. Bishop takes c3 is still in the air. Yeah, king f2, bishop takes c3. Yeah, what else? Do you have anything else here? Bishop d2 also doesn't look right. Black has become too active. Ducky Mace is asking, may I ask whose game this is? This is a game by Heike12, who has sent it in via the database analysis and coaching feature, and I'm analyzing her game because this is about analysis of premium member games and giving hopefully sound advice to improve their chess skills. Yeah, this is maybe this could still work. Rook d5. Yeah, actually, if rook d5 happens, I like this again. So bishop d2 is a move I like. Keeping an eye on a6, having rook d5 as a backup. This works, bishop d2. So this tactics, right? There's this pin, now bishop takes c3. And rook takes a6. Okay, rook be8. Yeah, I think you need to take on c3. Not many other options available. Did you have any other options here? No. Takes. Rook e8 takes c3. Rook takes e3. Yeah, this is already pretty drawish. Takes d6, check. Yeah, rook takes c3 would probably lead to a draw here. You're saying you expect rook takes c3, and then my plan was to exchange a pair of rooks and try to convert the extra pawn. Well, if you exchange a pair of rooks, I can certainly tell it's a draw. With pawns on one side, just being one pawn up, especially if you don't have a pass pawn, is usually not enough, because just not enough winning material. Black can quite easily defend. But maybe you can try something like rook b7, try to get two rooks on the 7th rank, which would be very powerful. The question is who's going to strike first, but maybe this could work. Yeah, and maybe you could still try something here. Yeah, rook b7, yeah. Yeah, this would be still a try. That would be a try to go for a win. You might have a good chance because this rook d7 is not easy to stop, and something like rook c5 and rook h5. Now this is quite passive for black, and you might have some situations where you can then go g4, and here I think you have excellent chances. So that would be a way to go then. But coming back to this position, yeah, you really want to be focused on your opponent's threats and what he has in mind. And those tactics, how to learn them, how to spot them in the game, well, you just gotta do a lot. That's what it's all about. You just gotta do a lot of tactics. You can do them here on Chess24. We have a tactics trainer. You can do them from books. You can do them on an app. Many ways, but the important thing is you do your tactics so you are confident in your calculation skills and also seeing those things immediately. Once black plays rook b8, you spot immediately, okay, there are possible threats, knight takes c3, bishop takes c3, and so on. So, that's really important. Bai is saying rook c7 followed by rook e7 maybe. Not sure which position you mean. No, I don't know where you mean by. But okay, in the game, you, after black didn't take the pawn back, you just had 2 extra pawns. Let's just go through it quickly to see what happened, but you said you converted pretty easily. Yeah, those 2 rooks are still tricky, but... Okay, here, for a moment I was concerned about rook a3 check, or rook takes c3 and rook a3, but this should be all winning with the c-pawn, so that's all fine. Okay, now just push the pawn and won eventually. Okay, nice. Yeah, so... good game, I would say. I don't think you were worse at any point. But there are some little tactics it seemed you missed. First, the c4 move right after the opening, and then this bishop takes c3. So work on your tactics. That's my first advice, and then also spend some time with this opening, because you want to make sure you find the right ways to set up your piece in the opening, so you don't end up in trouble. If black had played b4 early here, you need to move your knight, and yeah, of course you don't lose a pawn, but you've lost your beautiful center pawn on e4, and you're already worse right out of the gate. So check out this opening and make sure you know what you want to play here and how to set up your piece. Alright, but thanks to Heike, and I hope this was helpful. Let's go to the next game. I set the show to 90 minutes. We started, well, a little bit later in 5. We also had a little break. So we'll take our time here with the next game and see what was going on there. It's the game by... I don't even know. But I'm knowing I'm analyzing it for the white side. So let's get to it. Bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight g7. My opponent's surprised with knight g7. Alright, knight c3. But you knew some lines. Here, knight c3 is an interesting try. Another move, I think, which is very good, is c3 followed by d4. g6. d4 takes, knight d5. Yeah, that's a very sharp variation. Bishop g5, h6, dum 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 dum. I've looked at this like 6 years ago, and I found it's really dangerous for black here. Even though it kind of worked, I think, but it's dangerous. Knight takes d4. Nevertheless, he played the theory. Now I didn't know that much about his position either, and he played knight g4. Well, knight g4 looks a little bit awkward to me. I'm guessing knight d5 doesn't work because of takes, and rook e8 is annoying. So I guess you gotta go knight g4. Yeah, of course I don't remember much. From my analysis back in the day, but I just remember this is very interesting. Alright, knight g4, d6, knight e3. Yeah, this line that you're giving here, takes, takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, queen d4, check, f6, knight e3. Also looks nice for white with all these pawn weaknesses. So you could have also gone for that, but knight e3 also seems like it's just a nice edge here for white. Castle rook e8, c3. I didn't want to hurry with plans like f4. What is the right plan in your opinion? I would probably go ahead with f4 because black is still untangling himself. And yeah. Why not? c3 is a little bit slow. But I guess it's a different approach. I mean, what is black doing here? You want to go f5, f6. So black has to be aware if black takes, like he did in the game, and goes f6. Well, now... I mean, this looks super ugly, of course, first of all. But here, now you immediately can go f5, probably. And if bishop takes a4, just take on g6. Yeah, this looks horrible. Queen takes f6, no threat. Knight takes g6, just play knight f5. Or... I'm even wondering if rook takes f6 already works, but probably not quite. But knight f5 or take back on a4 first. This, of course, is great with the knight on f5 and the weak king. Junior chess team is saying bishop b3 instead of knight g4. But what is... Oh, okay. King takes f6, queen f3 check. Ah, okay. That might be a smart move here. So thanks, Junior Chess, for pointing that out. All right. Let's get back. So I would say go f4. Go for it right away. The black king position is weak. He's missing a dark squared bishop, so you want to open it up as quickly as you can. c3, knight takes d4. Yeah, then if you play c3, then you should at least take back with the pawn on d4, because otherwise this move c3 just looks like a waste of time. You didn't need to play c3 to take back with the queen. C takes d4, takes, queen takes. Yeah. It's a little bit better, but not that exciting. I would much rather see those variations where you go f4, f5, you put on pressure on your opponent, you attack him. That's much more difficult for your opponent to play as well. So queen takes d4, king f6 now. Rook a e1. I would like bishop c2 here, maybe. It's funny that Simon Prato, the white player whose game we're analyzing here, is a colleague of yours in your club. Well, I can't figure it out right now what his name is. Maybe you can check later. I like bishop c2 here. You're protecting pawn e4, and if knight c6, you can just go to d2. And then, once again, go f4. Put a knight on d5 even. And the point is, you're also keeping more pieces on the board, and that means less space for your opponent, right? So general rule of thumb, if you have more space, keep more pieces, let's put it like that, because then your opponent has less space, because, yeah, the pieces block each other's ways. Alright, so rook a1, knight c6, yeah. And I wouldn't like to give my bishop up for this knight on c6. But here already, it's true, knight e5 is an issue. So rook a1 seems like a mistake. You don't want to take on c6 and just give your bishop. So that was about prophylaxis, right? Think about what your opponent's going to do next, and what are you going to do about it. Bishop takes c6. Okay, took with the pawn. That was not necessary. And now f4. Yeah. Okay, queen e7 and e5. Yeah, looks good. e5 takes, a nice positional pawn sacrifice here. Queen e4. Yeah, creating some squares for the knight. The knight loves broken up pawns like this, where it's all isolated pawns, because that means the knight has outposts or squares where he cannot be attacked. So that's great. Rook f8, rook takes f8. I want to get my pawn back, but I'm sure there's a better way to play this position. Well, either way you'll just have a small edge, I guess. Because the only edge you're going to have is going to be a structural one, right? You'll have the better structure once you win back the pawn on e5. I think rook takes f8 is fine. I mean, you could play knight c4 right away, but yeah, maybe you didn't like, I don't know, something like queen c5 and rook takes f1 and rook e8 and yeah. It's not clear how you get your pawn back necessarily. You could probably go queen f3 now and win it back, but no, I think rook takes f8 is completely fine. Yeah. Takes, knight c4, queen f7. Yeah, queen c5 looks like a better try. Okay, he wants to checkmate, but okay, check first, and now queen c5 looks like a nice move. Why not queen d4 though? I mean, if I had a choice between the moves, I'm not sure. Queen d4 also looks interesting. I like to keep my queen as central as possible. Probably black plays queen d5 anyway, but now at least you would have some additional options. Now your queen wouldn't be threatened as it was on c5, so now you could play a move like rook e7. And you don't want to help a black with his pawn structure. And that's what happens in the game where you have to take on d5. Yeah, this looks very, very promising, right? Especially after rook f7. What is going on here? Knight e5 maybe? No, hold on. No, first take on f7. First things first, king takes. But yeah, now you can also just keep the queens on the board, or you can play knight e5 here. And yeah, just take on g6, you just win a pawn here. And let's say king e6, just... Yeah, I'm just thinking what's the smartest way to do this. But probably take on d5. Maybe take on d5 here in this situation and then take. So black cannot take back with the king on d5. And then just win the pawn on g6 and... this is still not that clear. The king becomes active, unfortunately. But it feels like in this direction there was something here for white, certainly. I'm quite sure. So queen d4 I would have liked better. Unless there's some reason why not to play this move, then go for it. Queen c5, queen d5. Yeah, now, yeah, you don't really want to go queen d4 now. That would be annoying. So takes. I mean, it's still a move to consider, honestly. I really wouldn't like to repair the black pawn structure. So I would still consider this move. Because if black takes, okay, you have outpost on e5. That looks great. Rook f4, okay. Well, just rook d1. It's a different story though now. Like bishop e6. Yeah, black might have enough play here. Okay, but just to consider. Okay, takes, knight e5. Now you guys were in time pressure, bishop f5. Knight f3 to get the king out. Okay, and black wants to put a bishop on e4, so yeah, I guess that makes sense. But it feels like you have given away a lot of your advantage, if not, honestly, everything. Probably have given away everything. Rook b8 here. Black could probably also play with like bishop e4. Okay, you can answer knight d2. Rook b8. Okay. Rook e2. Yeah, b3 or even b4 I would consider. b4 would be a thematic move to play on the dark squares. The question is if c5 is possible or a5. Either one. Probably c5 takes rook c8. And that looks like we'll just enter and draw more or less. I could still try, but it doesn't feel like it's much. Okay, rook e2, bishop g4, king f2. Yeah, that's a drawback though. I wouldn't like to give black the option to exchange the bishop against the knight. So probably I would have liked b3 here better maybe, or b4. Because this rook in game, if black takes on f3, looks just very drawish. Yeah, takes, king f6. Yeah, black could just go c6 here, I think. Okay, takes, rook a5, rook b6. Well, that's also just a draw. Rook c5 here, rook b2 would be. Rook b2, there's rook c6. Okay. Yeah, so still some pressure. Especially now, it seems black has. Well, he could still go king f7 here, but now he gives up a pawn. I like king e4. That's a nice move. That's a nice move of not rushing anything. And taking on c6 next. But he could have also taken right away, let's be honest. But yeah. Okay, king e4, rook b2 though. Check. King f7. And now king f3. Maybe not the best way. Please take a closer look at this phase of the game. Yeah, those rook end games. You all love them, right? We all love those rook end games. Yeah, it's always difficult with those rooks. I mean, if you take on a6, black takes on g2. It's not easy because your pawns are loose. They don't support each other. So not easy to get them through. Yeah, maybe just c4, takes c5. I really don't know. You might be fast enough, but this is just always so tricky, with those pawns, and the king supports the pawns. I mean, I could make random moves here, but it's going to be full of mistakes. That would be the ambitious try. Daki Mace is saying g3. Possible, yeah. I like g3. Takes, and now we can keep the g-pawn at least. Hopefully. But even here, let's say black plays something like this. I mean, the thing is, you end up in a really passive position. And yeah, doesn't seem like it works really. So let's see what you did. King f3, a5, rook c5, rook c2, h4, rook a2, rook takes a5, rook a3. g3. Check, king f4, h5, g8, okay. I'm pretty sure this is a draw, so let's see how this worked out. So here maybe black should play check first, I'm guessing, but okay. Analyzing it for white. a3, king f6, king d8 takes. King g7, king b6. After some analysis, I found out that the only way to win now is to move the king on the 6th rank. Oh, now you gave it all the way with rook f6. Rook f8, when rook a4 picks up the pawn on h4. So here, king g6, king b6. I mean, this is just so difficult. But yeah, now rook f8 looks nice, because black cannot take. King a6, rook takes rook a8, and rook takes a6. Rook f6. So what is black even doing here? It's kind of funny. Rook a4, let's say, but then king takes h5, and black still can't take. Yeah, so this seems to be the way to win. Yeah, but rook in games, honestly, I mean, they're really tough. You always gotta keep your eyes on any moves of your opponent. But yeah, you just miss this move, rook a4, and then suddenly it's a draw immediately. Very unfortunate. Well, in fact, even here, you could have still play king g6, yeah, probably. Because black doesn't really have useful moves anyway. Yeah, so it's really about looking at the options of your opponent. I mean, this is what it came down to here. Yeah, I think you played a good game too. And yeah, it sucks to not complete it, right? You were better most of the game, I would say. The end game, they slipped away when the queens came off, and you fixed the black pawn structure. But then you got the advantage back and tried and pressed, but just wasn't enough. But going back to this moment where you ask, how to play best for a win here? Yeah. It's really a lot about calculation. I mean, you gotta see if you want to take the risks, because sometimes it can also turn out the other way around, and you might lose such a position after rook takes a6, rook takes g2. Of course, if you're careful, you should never lose. But sometimes there are those races, and then you maybe overlook one move, and suddenly it all ends up badly. But what you went for here should be a fairly, well, maybe not easy draw, but it should be a draw, I'm pretty certain. I mean, this is a classic setup for black to put the pawns on g6 and h5. So I'm pretty sure this should be a draw, but black, well, we all make mistakes, and then you had your chance, but unfortunately you missed it. All right. So, man, we only got to cover 3 games this show. They were all super long. I mean, all of them were end games, I believe. So it just took more time. I want to cover more because I have so many more in my inbox, but I'll get to them another time. I don't know when yet though, because the Olympiad is starting on Friday when I have my usual show. So probably can't do one then, but maybe I could do one on Thursday. We'll see. I'll keep you updated, or you'll see it on Chess24 as always. And I really want to get to the remaining analysis, but the thing is just more and more are coming. So it's just like I can never get to all of them, but I hope to get to many more. All right, so really instructive games today, interesting end games. Thanks for everybody who sent them in, and I hope you got something out of it. I could point out a few things here and there, give some useful advice from my perspective. This is all without engine, so I'm sure I made a lot of mistakes. That's just how it is. But I hope you found it useful. All right, guys. I'll see you again soon, most likely. Bye-bye.